Я приветствую всех участников с началом 19-х банных чтений, и я признательна всем слушателям, которые в столь ранний час пришли послушать и поговорить об антропологическом повороте и регуманизации, возможно, потенциальной регуманизации гуманитариев. Собственно говоря, тот курс на исследование антропологического поворота, который журнал уже взял давно и манифестировал в 100-м номере НЛО, да, в этом смысле для нас это важный программный момент, и вот все конференции прошлого года, и этого, и последующие, так или иначе будут рассматривать эту проблематику проникновения антропологии во все гуманитарные дисциплины. Собственно, не буду занимать ваше внимание очень долго. Главная проблема, которую мы перед собой ставим, это как бы исследование этого феномена, этого огромного интеллектуального тренда, который уже в течение более чем 50 лет очень бурно развивается, и появляются такие бесконечные странные образования, как философская антропология, культурная антропология, историческая антропология, мы уже теперь говорим о филологической антропологии. Так что в этом смысле мы можем констатировать, что, видимо, складывается какая-то интересная новая научная парадигма, границы которой и специфику которой, видимо, следует уже серьезно исследовать и обсуждать. И тема сегодняшней конференции напрямую связана с проблемой новой концепции человека, которая очевидным образом возникает, и переориентация гуманитарного знания на формулирование этой новой концепции. И, собственно, наша гипотеза состоит в том, что сам этот антропологический поворот напрямую связан с некоторой такой регуманизацией гуманитарного знания, как ни парадоксально это звучит. Отказ от абстрактных тоталитарных схем, пытающихся объяснить все на свете единым набором инструментов, да, и попытка более тонкого, сложного изучения человека, мира и так далее. И, собственно, вот на этом мы и хотели поставить такой особый знак внимания, большой жирный знак вопроса. Недаром по-русски это звучит регуманизация гуманитариев с вопросительным знаком, по-английски знак этот вопросительный мы опустили. Вот. И я думаю, что эта проблематика, и если мы посмотрим на тот огромный круг замечательных авторов, которые в том числе и публикуются у нас, и в дружественных журналах, я думаю, что эта тема все-таки стоит во главе угла. И в международном контексте, в России, мне кажется, это еще и к тому же связано и с собственными проблемами развития, драматического развития гуманитарного знания в XX веке. А сейчас, я думаю, мы начнем конференцию, и я хочу сказать, что, как обычно, регламент у нас будет следующий. Выступление 20 минут, дальше сразу вопросы и реплики. У нас два рабочих языка, английский и русский, так что мы не переводим английские доклады. Соответственно, вы можете задавать вопросы по-английски. Если вам это сложно, у нас есть переводчик, вы сможете сформулировать по-русски, переводчик просто переведет для... I just say a few words. I won't repeat what I was talking about, you know, in my kind of preface. I only explain to the participants who are the first time at our conference. I'll speak about our way of doing the conference. So the paper itself, the talk, will be about 20-25 minutes, and immediately after that, people can ask questions, some remarks, and you can answer immediately. Because our main idea is to create a debate, speaking about the anthropological turn and what it means for the contemporary human sciences. So, and I'll be happy to invite our first speaker, young Assman, and very happy to greet him coming from Russia. I don't know whether he is the first time at Moscow at all, but oh, great! So that's his first visit, Mr. Assman. Приглашаю Яна Ассмана, который, как выясняется, первый раз в Москве.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very grateful for this invitation, especially since it's the first time for me to come to Moscow. It's a great honor to be invited to open this conference. Is this loud enough? Is this understandable? Does it work?
Yeah, but probably you're speaking a bit loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, humanizing the humanities is a topic of our conference. What I would like to contribute, however, concerns rather the idea, it doesn't work. It's too, what we perhaps. Is this better now? Yeah? Yes. Okay. So, what I would like to contribute, however, concerns rather the idea of humanity in the singular instead of the concept of humanities in the plural. Curiously enough, the singular and the plural of the word humanity have very little to do with each other. The term humanities in the plural refers to a plurality of disciplines whose common denominator is their concern with human ideas and practices, such as art, philosophy, literature, religion, history, music, cultural anthropology, and so on, as opposed to disciplines concerned with nature, such as physics, chemistry, astronomy, biology, and so on. Humanity in the singular refers to the idea of mankind, as opposed to subdivisions or subspecies such as nations, religions, classes, races, cultures, and other forms of dividing humanity into groups by introducing distinctions that may become borders of mutual enmity, untrained translatability, incomprehension, segregation, and so on. Humanities is a word that exists only in the plural. The word humanity, on the other hand, exists only in the singular. And this curious relationship seems interesting enough to deserve some attention. One could, for instance, postulate that the concept of humanity should serve as a regulative idea for the humanities, and that this idea could perhaps be a means to humanize them. The following paper will be concerned with the idea of humanity, especially in the context of Lessing's and Mendelssohn's critique of religion, but also in the light of the present situation where the ideas of the 18th century have acquired a new actuality. In the time of Lessing and Mendelssohn, in the 70s and 80s of the 18th century, the central problem was religious intolerance. The late 18th century can be interpreted as an age of what could perhaps be tentatively called world culture. Besides Greece and Rome, China and ancient Egypt served as the great cultural models. Parallels were drawn between the rituals and religious concepts of the American Indians and those of the ancients. Already in the 17th century, with John Selden, Athanasius Kircher, Pierre Daniel Huet, and many others, a kind of cultural comparatism evolved, operating on a global scale, stressing not only differences, first of all the difference between historia sacra and historia profana, history oriented by revelation and history based on nature, but also common features, first of all the common origin, descent from Noah, as laid out in the Table of Nations in Genesis 10, and as evidenced by innumerable parallels and correspondences. During the 17th century, this idea of humanity as a global network both of common features and of cultural or religious differences remained the matter of a rather specialized scholarly discourse, but formed in the 18th century the background of a much more general intellectual debate, especially when, under the influence of Enlightenment, the biblical doctrine of a common origin of human culture faded and gave way to polygenetic theories of culture. In the early 70s, Lessing, director of the Ducal Library at Wolfenbüttel, published under the title Fragmente eines Ungenannten, Fragments of an Anonymous Author, excerpts from a manuscript by Hermann Samuel Reimarus, an Orientalist, deist, and strong critic of biblical revealed religion. And these fragments that challenged the Bible and discarded it in favor of reason and nature triggered much controversy. But the most heated debate arose not from the fragments, but from Lessing's accompanying essay in defense of religion. In this essay, Lessing held that Reimarus' critique hits only the letter but not the spirit, only the Bible but not religion. The Bible, he wrote, is not the religion, and the letter is not the spirit. And this statement provoked a vehement response by Johann Melchior Goetze, an Orthodox Lutheran pastor at Hamburg, who defended the Lutheran principle of sola scriptura, meaning that the Bible is everything, and there is no foundation of religion and faith outside the Holy Writ. An exchange of ever more polemic pamphlets ensued, leading to no less than 11 essays by Lessing titled Anti-Goetze, until his duke forbade Lessing any further continuation of the polemics. In these essays, Lessing tried to relativize or humanize the concept of scripture revelation with its paradoxical combination of exclusivity, being given to only a small part of humanity, a specific group, and universality, claiming relevance for all mankind. And this contradictory idea introduces unsurmountable barriers, precluding tolerance and mutual understanding. Lessing, being forced to avoid the genre of the polemical essay, evaded to other formats. In his play Nathan der Weise, he used the famous parable of the ring to address the problem of revelation. A precious ring with the power to render its possessor agreeable to God and man came down from father to son until it came to a father who was unable to privilege one among his 3 sons. And he promised the ring to each of them and had copies made that even he himself was unable to tell apart. And after his death, each son believed himself in the possession of the true ring. 3 rings, 3 revelations. The true ring was not to be ascertained in the same way as the true faith. The parable of the rings amounts to the same argument that Lessing had defended in his essays, weakening the claim of exclusive, absolute and universal truth of scripture and revealed religion. In his Masonic dialogues, Freimaurergespräche, Ernst und Falk, Lessing complained of the dialectics of identity, which, by creating internal cohesion, creates external barriers. Instead of fellow human beings, we perceive each other as Englishmen, Frenchmen, Germans, Russians, or as Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Muslims, or again as noblemen, middle or low-class people. In this situation, he asked for true cosmopolitans who transcend these barriers and know where patriotism ceases to be a virtue, acknowledge the truth of other religions, and neither fear the superior nor despise the inferior ones. And these true cosmopolitans, he argues, are the Freemasons. Moses Mendelssohn, Lessing's Jewish friend and a true soulmate, pursued similar ideas in his essay Jerusalem oder über religiöse Macht und Judentum, Jerusalem or on religious power and Judaism. In this essay, he discusses the concept of revelation in Scripture, by means of which the competing world religion and only these figure themselves to be in full possession of the exclusive salvatory truth. For Mendelssohn, Judaism is not a religion of revelation in the Christian sense of the word. I believe, he writes, that Judaism does not know of any revealed religion. The Israelites have laws, commandments, rules of life, instruction about the will of God, but no general doctrines, no scientific truths. no statements of universal reason. Those God reveals to us always in the same way as to all other people, through nature, and never through language and writing. Mendelssohn distinguishes first between rules of life and religious doctrines, and second between natural and scriptural revelation. Doctrines refer to eternal truths. In Jewish understanding, these truths are revealed to all mankind with the creation of the world, and they are, at least partially, readable by reason with which God has bestowed all human beings. They are a matter of reason and not of faith. They must never be codified in writing. They were, Mendelssohn writes, confided through the living spiritual education that adapts to all the changes of times and circumstances. Only historical truths must be written down, but never eternal truths. The law that God gave or revealed to Moses on Mount Sinai is such a historical truth, which could only survive 3 ages by means of writing. Only with regard to historical truths, Mendelssohn writes, the highest wisdom deems it suitable to instruct human beings in human manner, that is, by speech and writing. The historical truth of the law regards only the Jews. Eternal truths regard the whole of humanity. Truths of reason are allgemeine Menschenreligion, the general religion of mankind, not Judaism. And general human religion was not to be revealed on Mount Sinai. Judaism, Mendelssohn continues, does not boast of any exclusive revelation of eternal truth, of no revealed religion in the general use of the term, which means the Christian use of the term. What Mendelssohn is opposing could perhaps be called the absolutism of difference, which he detects as a dangerous consequence in the Christian idea of revelation. He presents the Jewish concept of revelation as a counterexample that avoids the absolutism of difference by claiming only local or particular validity, thus allowing integration into or subordination under the overarching concept of Menschenreligion. For Mendelssohn, Menschenreligion is synonymous with natural religion, whereas natural religion was generally taken as the irreconcilable opposite of revealed religion. Mendelssohn understands them as complementary concepts. All humans live in the status of double membership, belonging both to their particular religion and to general human religion. The one transmitted to them by scriptural and oral tradition, the other revealed to them by reason, attention, and contemplation. Lessing opposes the absolutism of difference on a much broader scale. Besides the religious difference, which he, like Mendelssohn, attributes to a mistaken concept of revelation, he addresses also political and social differences that negate, destroy, and preclude the unity of mankind, the idea of humanity. Lessing's concept of a cosmopolitanism that overcomes the barriers of religion, nation, and class, and Mendelssohn's concept of Menschenreligion, religion of mankind, both relate to the idea of humanity in the sense of a trans-religious, trans-confessional, transnational, and trans-hierarchical system of values, needs, and properties to which all human beings belong apart from belonging to their specific religion, nation, and class. And this overruling level of unity breaks the absolutism of difference, which precludes tolerance and mutual understanding. During the 19th century, the absolutism of difference returned on the political plane, with the rise of nationalism, and on the ideological plane, later, with the rise of Marxism and fascism. After World War I, Oswald Špengler proposed a new absolutism of difference based on culture or civilization as a much more comprehensive category than religion, ethnicity, or ideology. In his extremely influential book, The Decline of the West, He outlined a cultural morphology postulating that every civilization behaves like an organism, following in its development similar laws of growth and decline. In an essay from 1922, Die Lehre Spenglers, the Spengler Doctrine, Thomas Mann characterized Spengler's theory as follows, quote, "Cultures are living organisms, strictly secluded in themselves, irrevocably bound to their proper styles of thinking, perceiving, feeling, experiencing, and one culture does not understand a word of what the other is saying." Against this new absolutism, Thomas Mann pitted his concept of what he termed the unity of the human mind, die Einheit des Menschengeistes. By this concept he understood not democracy, human rights, or other universalistic ideas, but mythology, thus returning to the old monogenetic theory of culture. He took this idea from the school of biblical scholars and Assyriologists called the Pan-Babylonists, who held that all mythologies of the world originated from ancient Mesopotamia. On the scholarly stage, this theory was already outdated when Mann adopted it, but he subscribed to it not for scientific but for ideological reasons, using it as an antidote not only to Spengler's but also to the new fascist versions of an absolutism of difference, based not on mind and culture but on race and biology, that he attacked as the new spirit of anti-humanity, anti-humanität. And this was also the time of extreme positions and dehumanizing tendencies, not only in political ideology, but also in the humanities, as well as in literature, philosophy, and art. An extreme representative of an absolutism of difference during these years was Karl Schmidt, a professor of constitutional law in Bonn and Berlin, who became the court lawyer of the Third Reich. And Schmidt's criterion for dividing humanity and negating any unity of mankind was the distinction based not on religion, nation, class, or race, but on friend or foe. For Schmidt, this distinction was the basis of any political identity. It may be plausible to define the sphere of the political in terms of association and dissociation, belonging and disbelonging, but Schmidt did not stop here, but drove this distinction to its extreme. For this he introduced the concept of Ernstfall, the case of emergency. He did not only want to define the political as an autonomous sphere besides law, science, religion, art, and so on, but as the hegemonial sphere overarching all other cultural spheres and overruling all other rules of thought and behavior. The case of emergency in the political sphere is war, and from this ever-real potentiality, how he calls it, Schmidt deduced the distinction between friend and foe to define the political not only in times of war, but in general. In the same way as Heidegger, during these same years, defined life as Sein zum Tode, being toward death, Schmidt defined the political as being toward war. If Thomas Mann abhorred anti-humanity, Carl Schmidt abhorred humanity. Whoever speaks of humanity, he wrote in his Begriff des Politischen, speaks of humanity wants to deceive. Thomas Mann gives a portrait of this radical style of thought in the figure of Naphtha in his Magic Mountain, opposing him to Settembrini, a Freemason and a typical representative of Lessing's cosmopolitan, who thinks and acts above the level of religious, political, national and social differences. Schmidt's term for a state that based itself on the political in his sense of a highest degree of intensity was the total state, der totale Staat. This was the type of state and politics he was advocating in his treatise on the political. Instead of an absolutism of difference, we may also speak of a totalitarianism of difference, meaning that the difference was not only unsurmountable, but also the domineering, all-prevailing principle vis-à-vis which all other differences and unities faded. It is perhaps this new category of emergency that gave the principle of difference a new quality. In the case of emergency, all inner differences disappear before the all-prevailing distinction between friend and foe. Ich kenne nur noch Deutsche, said Emperor Wilhelm II at the outbreak of the Great War. I know only Germans. Meaning that in times of war, the differences between socialists and conservatives, Protestants and Catholics, Prussians and Bavarians had become immaterial, but also that the difference between Germans, Frenchmen and Englishmen had become absolute. In this state of intensity, the difference between religion and politics vanishes in view of an overwhelming similarity. Also religion, that is revealed religion, knows of a case of emergency. This is apocalypse, the last judgment. And apocalypse is the original Greek term for revelation. Apocalypse and revelation mean the lifting of a veil, and what is revealed is the imminent judgment. It is in this apocalyptic perspective that difference becomes not only absolute but totalitarian. After World War II, the concept of humanity started a new career with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, the new legal concept of crimes against humanity, the installation of new institutions such as the International Criminal Court and many NGOs. And this new concept of humanity is the secular, political and legal form of what Mendelssohn has called Menschenreligion, the religion of man. It is no longer a matter of nature, creation and essence, but of intent, a common goal to achieve. Instead of searching the remote past for common origins, as did Thomas Mann, we are now looking into the future, defining common features not as common roots, but as common needs and common goals. Whether or not the idea of human rights as a Western concept is immaterial, the idea is spreading, and this spread is not an effect of Westernization or cultural imperialism, but of fading differences in the age of globalization, worldwide communication, and the rise of a critical global public. Thank you.
So, any questions, comments? Sir.
Can I say it without a microphone? No. Thank you. So as this was an opening lecture, I would like to ask you two questions, Jan, but I think they're meant to be questions opening up the discussion. The first one you almost answered already in your final sentences, but I think it's important nevertheless to underline this point. So my first question is, do you think that there's any empirical possibility to decide these two alternative concepts? I mean, is there any empirical way to say, yes, it is possible to find a conceptual common denominator for all the different articulations of what it is to be human? Or would one have to say, no, this is indeed, as you said, towards the end, this has a certain normative value. Whenever you propose that there is something like a common denominator concept, you always already have a normative implication. You have an ideal where you want to go. And the second question is based on the first one. The one word, actually, the one signifier, not the one concept, the one signifier you did use is anthropology. I mean, not criticizing you for that. But based on the first distinction, I mean, is there empirical possibility, or is there always a normative implication when you say humanities, when you use the common denominator concept? Can there be a concept of anthropology, or can there be a conception of anthropology that does not imply the normative premise? Meaning that although anthropology looks so clean and neutral and objective and scientific, I found that interesting how in the rhetoric for the colloquium the word scientific was kind of attached to anthropological. is there a way for anthropology to be quote unquote, I mean, neither you nor I like to use scientific in that sense, to be scientific without having the previous normative implications?
Yes, thank you, thank you Sepp, for these very fundamental questions. For me, it's not a matter of decision. You ask me, is there an empirical basis to decide? Well, I conceive of, let's say, diversity and unity not in terms of decision, either or, but both. So I think Mendelssohn's idea of double membership, he didn't call it so, but this is what he had in mind, that there are differences on one level and there is unity on another level. And this unity on the other level, also for Mendelssohn, is a kind of truth which is not to be empirically found out or ascertained or so, but it's only a matter of ongoing search and attention. So it is to be thought in the future and not in the past. So he was also the distinction between the empirical and the normative. I think also this is not a matter of either or, but there are, let's say, there are factors that become in the course of time, because also mankind is changing in a way, learning and developing, and they become true. They are not empirically to be found out, but they are politically to be realized. So I think I would say the modern or postmodern, the actual situation where we have so many new forms of communication, like the internet and all these formats like Facebook and MySpace and email and so on. These new means of communication create new forms of unity, and which may lead to, this is a kind of emergence, which produce forms of, produce similarity and common features that are now to be also empirically observed. And so new situations arise where even not only in the normative but also in the empirical approach lead to new forms of unity. But I would always also stress the dialectical importance of difference. So the more unity there is in the age of globalization, the more important become also the differences. If we cultivate this kind of two-level thinking, that we are not, let's say, blurring the differences, but cultivating them, in let's say, fully recognition of the goal to achieve the importance of this idea of humanity, which does not preclude and not destroy and not abolish the differences, but this goes together. So I think that these were questions addressing the whole of our community, and I'm not in a position to really answer them, but just to connect them to this. So, thank you.
То, Tomas Mann seems to be an important author for you, but we all know very well that he was also seduced by nationalist ideas in 1918 in his book Betrachtungen eines Unpolitischen. So the question, and NAFTA seems to embody certain traits of his own ideals. So my question is, do you think that these ideals still remained with Tomas Mann afterwards, after the First World War? Or did he totally refuse from this? Just, you understand this?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is one of the most interesting aspects of Tomas Mann, that he underwent a kind of conversion. So in this book, Betrachtungen eines Unpolitischen, he was a very strong advocate of difference, very much in the spirit of Oswald Špengler, very much so. And he was fascinated by Oswald Špengler. So his first reading of Oswald Špengler was totally affirmative. And then, after 1918, even a little after, in the year 22, he had a kind of conversion. He converted to everything he just despised and abhorred in his form of democracy. So in The Magic Mountain, which appeared in 24, but was written, of course, since, I think, 30. So, in The Magic Mountain, he tried to work out this inner conflict by opposing Settembrini and NAFTA. And Settembrini, the Italian Freemason, is really a personification of this idea of Masonic internationalism, which he criticizes sharply in the Betrachtung des Unpolitischen. So I would not go so far that he underwent a total change. So I think something of an authoritarian spirit remained with him. But he made great efforts to subscribe to these Western ideas, which he criticized in his time. So I think this is a very interesting case. And here I was quoting the later Tomas Mann with his idea of humanity. And humanity, humanität, becomes a central, the highest value almost in the later Tomas Mann. Yeah, thank you.
It's the continuation of your questions. So I think we are always moving between the definition of humanity in terms of rationality, enlightenment, culture, civilization, history, or nature. And of course, nature is always a constant cultural construct, and we are always moving between bias, animal, which is always there, towards something cultural. But all these definitions, I think, are very normative. And there is no way to build such a definition without normative element. I don't think that there is a possibility of empirically avoiding this normative approach. I think the only radically non-normative definition is the definition of humanity as a radical undeterminacy. As soon as you are trying to determine what is humanity, you are immediately relapsing into a kind of terrifying normativity, and we know what happens immediately after it. So I think undeterminacy is what humanity is, and of course this Lateran humanism, which is immediately comes to mind when Heidegger is starting by rejecting one definition after another definition, finally is coming to this kind of definition of through being or design or something like that. But design is also very, very quickly becomes, in my opinion, normative. Thanks very much. Because there are some people who have no opening, no possibility to deal with this. There is always this kind of inauthenticity or whatever it is, veiling of being. So, but there are some people who are able to question really. So there is always normativity. It's something which is always emerging even when after this long list of rejection of any definition. So I think radical indeterminacy is something that is probably a definition for humanity.
I think Alaida's paper tomorrow will give us much better opportunities to discuss these questions. I, as an Egyptologist, am of course operating on the plane of empiricism and not of normativity. I'm as a student of a specific culture, ancient Egypt, my interest is in the specific differences which set off ancient Egypt as against other cultures. And I think this kind of what you call it, archaeology, this kind of cultural study, which is focused on a particular culture, is always anti-normative and relativist. So, it will always be, and should always be. I think this is the only normativity to this type of cultural studies, that one has to work out the differences. But on the political plane, where we are now observing what's going on in the Arab countries, and so on, where we are speaking of human rights, this is a totally different approach, political plane. And there, of course, the normative concepts come in. And it's not, again, not a matter of either or. Both have their difficulties. So, I, as an Egyptologist, must insist on empiricism, empirical study of cultures.
You are not determining humanity.
No, no.
Listening to you, I was thinking of recent research by young colleagues in Switzerland about creationism in the United States, which I think, of course, is connected to exactly what Lessing and Mendelssohn struggled against, which is taking the strict scripture at first phase. But at the same time, this new movement, creationism, which is extremely important and very underestimated by intellectuals because it looks just funny, but it has very deep, as you might know, political consequences in the US. Well, in that case, the position towards the scripture is connected with the use of the liberal tools of tolerance. I don't know whether you are familiar with it. Let me just say a few words to ask your opinion about that. Because again, I think it's a new appearance of the issue that the author you studied were dealing with. So in the present case of US creationism, these people are using two major tools. First, law, liberal law, as a condition to protect opinion, which means that they have to present their concern not in terms of religion, which would be excluded by the Constitution, but in terms of opinion. So they use tolerance for and the equipment of liberal thought and liberal politics to struggle against liberalism, which is their final target. So it is very sophisticated and somehow perverse for the kind of critical understanding that we have of the dangers of community or totalitarianism. Because these people are using the tools of tolerance. Do you see my question?
Yeah, well, I should read these, I should know these people. Sounds a bit paradoxical. Yeah, thank you very much. I shall ask you about references.
Any other questions?
I think you said in reference to Lessing that in nature revelation lives in things rather than in words of language, which means that if you would want to study, to explore the common roots of humanity, you'd go to study those things. But then as you define the goal as studying common needs and goals, does it not become radically more difficult to forego languages, the various languages in which they are being formulated?
Yeah, well, it is not, so Mendelssohn and Lessing spoke of revelation, and Mendelssohn rejected language, Wort und Schrift, the word and scripture. He rejected these only as a medium of revelation of eternal truth. He presented what he called lebendiger Unterricht, so living education, of course, meaning oral education, meaning the oral Torah, the Jewish tradition, as a much more suitable, appropriate means to discuss about, let's say, eternal truth, and also goals and needs and so on. So these must never, this was his idea, these must never be written down with this kind of normativity as canonized scripture, claiming eternal validity. So it's not so much an opposition between nature and scripture, it's more an opposition between canonized scripture and this Habermas idea of ongoing debate and negotiation. Discursive, Habermas calls it discursive fluidity, diskursive Verflüssigung. So one has always to keep in ongoing oral discussion these ideas, these matters of eternal truth, and only, let's say, historical truth should be written down. So this was Mendelssohn's. Whereas Lessing's idea of natural religion, I think this was also, he was not excluding language as a means of, let's say, discussing natural religion, only codifying and canonizing truth. This he was